Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. A minute later, Mom was holding a birth certificate for Crystal Ramsey, a female child born to William and Susan Ramsey. Mom paid $10 to Norma for the 2 birth certificates and we left after thanking her for helping us. Mom promised to send her some publicity stills if I got the job with Leonardo. As we left the building, Carol said, "Wow, Crystal. You never told me that you were being considered for a role with Leonardo." Mom said, "Carol, there is no role, but we now have a birth certificate for Crystal. Now she can get a social security number and a passport in case we have to travel for a part. Mr. Daniels has been asking every week about the social security number. They need it for their records before they can begin making payments to Crystal for her work. We'll stop at the Social Security Administration office tomorrow afternoon and take care of that little detail." On the way home, we stopped at an office supplies store and got a dozen photocopies of my birth certificate so that we would have copies to send out if needed. We also had ID pictures taken so that we are all able to apply for passports when the need arises. We had cheerleading practice after school on both Wednesday and Thursday. Only a few of the other girls were there to teach us since these were not regular practices, but were only for Carol's and my benefit. On Friday we had a full practice with the entire squad. By now Carol and I were able to do most of the cheers even if we weren't proficient yet. After the practice, several of the girls wanted to go out for pizza, so we piled into 2 cars and drove to Jerry's Pizza Haven. We ordered pizza and drinks and then talked about the practice while we waited. Talk eventually turned to the upcoming game schedule and then to the boys on the teams. Here in the almost empty restaurant, the talk was almost as ribald as in the girls' bathroom. Carol and I giggled and laughed along with the cheerleaders as they related their adventures from last year. After an hour at the restaurant, we all decided to head for home. One of the girls, Nancy Cupos, offered us a ride home, and 15 minutes later we were dropped off at the curb next to our driveway. We thanked Nancy for the ride and went inside. Mom wanted to know how it went, so we sat down and told her about the practice and that we had gone out for pizza with the girls. She was upset that we had ruined our appetite for dinner but understood the need for socializing with the other girls. We got up early Saturday morning so that we could get ready to attend the football game. Nancy Cupos picked us up at 9 o'clock. She had already picked up 4 other girls before coming to our house, so her little Subaru was crowded with 3 in the front and 4 in the back once we had climbed in. The closeness of the ride and the fun that we had climbing out probably helped to alleviate the nervousness that we would have felt otherwise as we faced our first game as cheerleaders. We all went to the girls' locker room to finish getting ready. We fixed our makeup and talked as we waited for game time. As the kickoff time approached, Donna clapped her hands to get everyone's attention and let us know that it was time to leave. She said loudly, "Okay, girls, time to take the field. Line up in 2 rows and let's go." She and Lynn led us out onto the field and we lined up on either side of the area where our team would enter the field. As the announcer called their names and the football players ran past us, we yelled and jumped up and down to welcome them. I received more than a couple of intense looks from the football jocks as they jogged past. When the last player had entered the field, we formed a single line and hurried to our positions on the sidelines. Our team dominated the game throughout the first half and the mood was almost festive as we ran into the school at halftime. After a quick bathroom break and a little time to pull ourselves together, it was time to hurry back out. Our team continued their onslaught of the opposition when the second half started and the final score was 35-6. As the horn sounded to signal the end of the game, we ran off of the field behind the players. A few of the football players had hung back to talk with friends, but most ran into the locker room. We ran into the girls' locker room and plopped down to rest. Some of the girls began to strip down in preparation for taking a shower, but Carol and I just sat and cooled down with some of the others. The talk centered around a victory party that was being held at Jimmy Benneker's house that evening. The entire squad was invited, of course. After about half an hour, the girls that were riding with Nancy piled into her car and she took us home. As we pulled up in front of our house and Carol and I got out, Nancy asked if we needed a ride to the party tonight. Without asking me, Carol told her that we did and that we would be ready. Nancy waved and drove off. Carol, how could you do that without asking me? I don't want to go to that party. Football jocks are your thing, not mine. Oh, cries. You haven't been out on a date in weeks. It'll be good for you to get out. At least you know that you won't be swamped with fans and autograph hounds at the party. Now say that you'll go. Do it for me, if not for yourself. After all, I joined this squad for you. I thought about it for a couple of seconds. Carol had joined the squad at my request, so I guessed that I owed her a favor. Okay, I'll do it for you. But I don't promise to have fun. I have never had anything in common with sports jocks. That was before you blossomed. Things will be different now. Come on, let's go decide what we're going to wear. Mom came in as we were looking through our closets to see what we should wear. When she learned that I was going to the party, she jumped right in to help with the selections. I knew that she wanted to make sure that I was suitably dressed because I would be appearing in public. We settled on a light rose-colored blouse, black skirt, and shoes with 4-inch heels. As always, the skirt was so tight that I could barely walk in it, and the blouse left little to the imagination. Carol and I decided to work on our nails as Mom left to make some phone calls. We bathed right after dinner and we were ready to go when Nancy showed up to pick us up. It was only a 10-minute ride to Jimmy Benneker's house. Jimmy was definitely born on the right side of the tracks. His folks' home was a monstrous ranch-style home in a prestigious neighborhood. I learned that his dad was an enthusiastic supporter of the team and these parties were common at their house. Only a few of the other girls, and about half a dozen guys had arrived when we got there, and it was one of the girls from the squad that opened the door when we rang. Mr. and Mrs. Benneker were busy setting up the food tables in the largest living room recreation room that I had ever seen. Carol and I joined a small group of girls which expanded and contracted as others arrived and then some paired off with guys. Many of the players brought their dates with them. At one point there were only 3 of us in the group, and several guys approached us. Within 5 minutes I had found myself paired up with one of the guys as Carol and Janine Tompkins left to dance with the other 2 boys. Bradley Franklin Reese, Brad, was the star quarterback on our team. His 6-foot 6-inch frame towered over me since I was only 5 foot 8 inches in my heels. He asked me to dance and, as we moved around the floor, I felt like a child in his arms. His arms were almost as big around as my legs, and his body weight had to be double that of my own 115 pounds. When the song ended, Brad blocked my retreat back to where we had been standing and then engaged me in another dance when the next song started. We danced a total of 3 times before he maneuvered me to an isolated spot along one of the walls. There wasn't any point in returning to where I had been standing with Carol and Janine since they were still with the guys that they had left to dance with. Over the course of the next couple of hours, I stood and talked with Brad, or danced with him. He surprised me by being able to talk about things other than football and sports. On several occasions other guys approached us to talk, but they didn't stay very long. From the corner of my eye I could see Brad glaring at them or making gestures with his head until they got the point and left. When Carol came and got me, we left to go to the powder room. Brad said, as we started to leave, "I'll meet you back here when you're done." Carol and I picked our way through the crowd until we made it to the hallway where the bathroom was located. It was unoccupied and we went in and locked the door behind us so that no boys could come in while we were there. As soon as we were sure of our privacy, Carol said, "Cries, not bad. It looks like you have Brad Reese roped and tied." "What do you mean?" "We just danced a few times." "Oh, it's more than that. The word is that he's interested and all others better stay away." "Have you noticed that nobody else has asked you to dance even though a lot of them would like to?" "Well, it's true that no one else has asked me to dance yet. And I don't think that they will." "Have you noticed that nobody has even talked with you very much?" "Yeah, a few boys joined us but then left fairly soon." "Right. Brad is putting out all of the signals to stay away. And that's very unusual because he is one of the most sociable animals on the team." And Lori de Benedictis is fuming. She figured that she would be the one to attract Brad's attention after he split up with Cheryl Michaels a week ago. We finished up in the bathroom and walked out. Brad and Adam Stefanski were talking at the end of the hall that led back to the party. As we approached, they parted and then fell in behind us. Adam was the boy that had been monopolizing Carol's time since the party began. We joined a small group that was standing near the refreshments table. Brad came up behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. I knew that the move was not missed by the others in the group, and had probably been noticed by almost everybody in the room. I let him leave his hands there as we talked because it was better than having them somewhere else. After a while Brad wanted to dance again, so I let him take my hand and lead me to the dance area. The song was just ending as we reached the area set aside for dancing, so we waited until another CD loaded in the large capacity player. The new song was a slow dance and Brad wrapped his arms around me and slowly led me around the floor. I had to reach up to put my arms around his neck. After that song there was another slow dance, and then another. I guess that the entire CD consisted of slow dance songs, and Brad wanted to dance them all. My only break was the 10 seconds or so between songs. After a few dances Brad had bent his head down next to mine and he had taken to kissing and nibbling on my ear. At the beginning of the slow dances the lights in the room had been turned way down, but I'm sure that everyone was aware of Brad's attentions. Toward the end of the 5th or 6th dance he pulled me to him and kissed me with the passion that Rick had displayed for the close-ups at the theater. I was shocked at first, but saw no harm in a kiss. His tongue forced its way into my mouth and explored every millimeter of its interior. I heard the music end and then silence. I opened my eyes and then saw that everyone around us was staring at us. Brad became aware of it, broke off the kiss, and smiled sheepishly. He led me to a darkened corner so that we would be out of the scrutiny of most people. The next song had started and the others had returned to dancing. Brad took advantage of my position with my back to the wall to try to kiss me again. With a wall behind me, and a human wall in front of me, I had no avenue for escape, so I reluctantly let him kiss me again rather than create a scene. This kiss was even more passionate than the last one, and I had to fend off his hands as he took advantage of our dark corner to try rubbing my breasts. With his frontal attack thwarted, he changed tactics and began kneading my tush, all the while rubbing his tongue on mine. I realized my mistake when I put my right arm behind me to protect my tush and he took hold of my hand and pulled it into the small of my back and held it there. With my right arm securely held out of the way, and my left arm trapped between our bodies, Brad took advantage of the situation to begin rubbing my right breast. Although he was only rubbing a silicone breast form, the sensation somehow began to affect me, and I found my breathing quickening, and my own passion increasing. The feeling was reminiscent of the time up at the lake when my passion had started to take control over me. Like that time, I found myself beginning to suck on the tongue that had been inserted into my mouth. Also like that time, I knew that I had to take control of the situation before I lost it. I began squirming against Brad and pushing his tongue out of my mouth. When he pulled away slightly, I breathed as deeply as I could and said, "I have to come up for air every once in a while. This corset doesn't allow me to breathe normally." He looked at me as his reasoning slowly took over again and said, "Why do you wear that thing anyway? It must be uncomfortable. It's part of the image. It gives me an hourglass figure." The waist in the costumes that I wore in the play was only 18 inches. Without this, I would never fit into them. But why continue to wear it now that the play is over? Your waistline wouldn't be more than 21 or 22 inches without it? Like I said, it's part of the image. Until I get established, I have to do something to get noticed, so I wear this corset and the form-fitting clothes. Once I get known, then I can ease up a little bit. When you're starting out, you need an edge. I think that you're beautiful enough without it. Thanks, but the show business professionals see beautiful girls constantly. I need to stand out in their minds, like Marilyn Monroe, Sophia Loren, Rachel Welch, or Lonnie Anderson would. I want them to think of me when they're casting a role. It must be working because I can't stop thinking about you. Brad moved in again as soon as he said that and attempted to kiss me. I squirmed around and managed to break free of his grasp, telling him that I had to go to the bathroom. Carol knocked on the door a few seconds after I entered and I let her in. She laughed and said, "God, cries, you're a mess. Your lipstick is all over your face. Brad keeps getting carried away. I'm glad that we're at this big party. If we were alone, I might not be able to stop him. I can't believe how strong he is. Sounds like you scored big. Everybody is talking about you too. That kiss on the dance floor will be the subject of gossip for the next week. It looks like Brad is totally smitten. I hope that Sean doesn't hear about it, though, because he'll be jealous as hell, and for good reason. Brad is a real stud, but he may be more than you can handle, sis. You don't have to tell me. I know it. He's starting to get passionate and I'm having trouble avoiding his amorous advances because he's so big and strong. Should we leave? No. It would look weird if we left this early. Let's stick it out until the party starts to break up, and if he gets too carried away, just use your knee to cut him back down to size. My knee? Yep. It's a girl's best line of defense. One quick jab and the biggest guys will crumple to the ground. There's two problems with that. One, I don't want to hurt him. Aside from causing a scandal, the team needs him. And two, there's no way that I could ever knee him while I'm wearing this tight skirt. I can barely raise my leg 2 inches. I'll just try to avoid him for the rest of the party. Okay, cries, it's your call. But I can tell you that half of the girls here would trade partners with you in an instant. I had cleaned off all the old lipstick, reapplied new, and then freshened my other makeup as well, as Carol had tended to her face. We opened the bathroom door and walked back to the party. Brad and Adam were again waiting at the end of the hall and followed behind us. Almost everyone had paired off by now, but there were more guys than girls at the party, so there was a small group of guys still trying to win the remaining, unpaired girls. It was to this group that we walked, and joined. We had no sooner reached the group than Brad stepped up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. There was no mistaking the signal that he was attempting to convey. Namely, this is mine. Keep your distance or suffer the consequences. Adam did the same to Carol, and I noticed that she permitted it. Rather than create a scene and embarrass Brad, I allowed him this expression of masculinity. Brad, as the star quarterback, was able to enforce his claim without question. If he had not occupied the position on the team that he did, then his size would probably have guaranteed his claim anyway. Adam, on the other hand, was only a tight end, and a small one at that. The other guys immediately began flirting with Carol. Adam didn't like it, but there was little that he could do. He finally managed to get her to the dance floor and away from the advances of his teammates. Brad took that as his cue, and I found myself being gently pulled to the dance floor also. It was just as well, since my status as Brad's date excluded me from much of the conversation. I doubted if anyone wanted to anger Brad. Once on the dance floor, it was a repeat of our earlier time there. All of the dances were slow again, and it wasn't long before Brad was showing signs of affection. After 2 more dances, he had again guided me to a deserted spot along the darkened wall and was trying to engage me in a lip lock. I was in a quandary as to what to do. If I created a scene here, the word would be all over the school on Monday, and my name would be mud with the squad and the team. After all, we were only talking about kissing. Since Brad was so handsome, strong, and talented, I doubted that anyone would understand if I refused his advances without good reason. I could probably expect rumors that I was a lesbian to begin circulating. I couldn't see any other alternative than to go along, using my energies to control his ardor. I knew that I would not receive any help from the rest of the team unless he got completely out of control, so I submitted to his kisses and used my hands to control him. At 2 a.m. Mr. Benneker turned on all of the lights and announced that the party was over. Brad pulled away and began to gather himself as I did the same. I looked around and saw the same thing being done around the room. I got my purse and used my compact and a tissue to remove smeared lipstick while Brad looked on. I repaired the damage and then used a fresh tissue to clean up Brad's face as he grinned at me. Carol came over to me and said, "Adam is going to take us home instead of Nancy. Are you ready, sis?" I nodded. Brad said eagerly, "I'll take you home, Crystal. I have my new 4x4 outside." "Thank you, Brad, but I have to arrive home with my sister, so we should ride together." "No problem. I'll follow right behind Adam." There didn't appear to be any point in arguing, so I said, "Okay. As long as there are no side trips." He knew what I meant. We said good
Bye
to everyone and thanked Mr. and Mrs. Benneker for the party before leaving. Brad held the door open for me and tried to help me into his new Chevy 4x4. Because my skirt was so tight I couldn't step up into the high truck, so Brad picked me up effortlessly and set me on the seat. Then he buckled my seatbelt around me before walking around to the driver's side and getting in. He pulled into position behind Adam's little Toyota and we arrived at the house in about 10 minutes. On the trip home I had kept him busy by asking about football. Once started he talked non-stop until I was home. Brad must have prearranged it with Adam because neither made any movement towards disembarking their passengers after parking in front of the house. Instead, Brad leaned over me and began kissing me again. Brad had been pretty much of a gentleman during the past hour, and I did like him a little, so I again submitted to his kisses. In no time the windows were fogging over because of the chilly night weather. Brad's tongue had spent almost as much time in my mouth tonight as my own. I don't know how long we kissed, but we kept it up until there was a rapping on the window. At first I was scared that it might be a policeman or a neighbor, but it turned out to only be Carol. A fact that I didn't discover until I had rolled the window down. Carol said, "Come on, cries." It's time to go in before Mom has the police out looking for us." At the mention of the police, Brad jumped out and hurried around to my side. He opened the door and picked me up after unbuckling the seatbelt. Instead of putting me down on the sidewalk, he carried me all the way to the front door. What was it about guys that made them want to carry me everywhere? Brad took time for one more kiss before saying goodnight and leaving as we went inside. I was exhausted. After all of the exercise from the game this morning, I had had a night-long wrestling match with Brad. Carol said, "Well done, little sister. You hooked him, played him, and landed him. He's yours now. You only have to decide if you want to keep him or throw him back. And you thought that you weren't going to have a good time. Well, I'm beat. Come on. I'll help you climb the stairs and then loosen your corset. Then I'm going to crash hard." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything at first. As Carol was helping me to get undressed, so that she could help me with the corset, I said, "Carol, what do I do now?" "About what?" "About Bradley Franklin Reese, of course," I said in a slightly agitated manner. "Why ask me?" "He's your boyfriend," she said offhandedly. "No, he's not. We just met tonight. By Monday the word will be all over the school that you're Brad's girl. Better get used to it. No other guy is going to mess with you now. Not if he knows what's good for him. I never should have gone to that party tonight. Best thing that could have happened to you, sis. You hooked the richest, best-looking jock in school. He's no Albert Einstein, but he's smart, for a jock. The unattached girls in school are going to have even more reason to hate you now. Great. Just what I need. Brad's a nice guy, but I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. Sleep on it. Things will look better in the morning." We kissed and Carol went to her bedroom. I finished getting ready for bed and slid between the sheets. I was too tired to think about it tonight, so I rolled over and fell fast asleep in minutes. On Sunday, I intended to spend most of the day at home as I was afraid to be seen in public for fear of being recognized. Even with the dark glasses, I was easy to spot as Mom continued to insist that I wear form-fitting clothes and high heels. My uniforms gave me away every time. I hadn't decided what to do about Brad, so I put the subject out of my mind for the present. My only intended trip out of the house was to go to the theater to meet with Marge and Barbara. My chest had been starting to itch more and Mom had made an appointment to have my breast forms removed and the skin underneath cleansed before reapplication. We arrived at the theater around 10 o'clock in the morning, and then sat with Marge and Barbara to enjoy a cup of tea in the makeup department. Both Barbara and Marge raved about my performance in the TV series premiere, the hosting work, and the commercials. "Barrett's is getting a lot of mileage from those commercials," Marge said. "They're using your current celebrity to the max. They must be running at least 4 commercials each evening. Good thing that they made so many, or they would be getting a bit tired now." "They have the right to use them," I said. "They paid a lot of money to produce them, and I'm sure that they want to get their money's worth. I can't complain, and I think that I get a small residual each time that they show them. My only problem is that they keep my face in front of the public and I can't seem to go anywhere without being recognized." Mom said, "Since Crystal started acting, our college fund has increased by over $15,000 after taxes, agents' fees, and expenses. That's a wonderful start. Crystal will be able to take her pick of any college in the country at this rate." "That's wonderful, Susan. I'm so happy for you and the girls," Barbara said. "This has been a dream come true for us." Without Crystal's job, they would have been lucky to complete 2 years at the local community college. Now we're looking at a full 4 years at colleges of their choice. I can't tell you how much better I sleep at night. Barbara said, well, why don't we get started on the task at hand? We can talk as we go. Take off you blouse and bra, hon. After I had bared my chest, Barbara applied the breast form solvent. As before, Barbara supported the weight of the breast with one hand and waited for the amount of time specified in the instructions. Then she lowered her hand to allow the breast form to slowly peel off of my chest and fall into her hand. Also as before, the skin underneath looked dry and peeling, but unlike before, there was more underneath than just skin. There was a definite form and mass in the area formerly hidden by the breast form. I said excitedly, Mom, look. Look at this. Look at it. Mom said, I see it, dear. What is it? I mean, why is it like that? It shouldn't be like that, should it? I don't know, dear. Let me feel it. Mom started to feel and squeeze the fleshy mass. As she did, the nipple started to harden and my breathing started to quicken. I began to feel uneasy in my belly. Barbara noticed my reaction and stopped Mom. Crystal's skin has been deprived of any contact for a number of weeks. Your handling is affecting her. Mom, what do you think? Is there something wrong? Why is it like that? Well, dear, I'm not sure. Do you think that wearing the corset may have caused my body to store fat other than the normal place around my torso? My hips, tush, and thighs have also been getting a little beefier. I don't know. I remember Barbara mentioning, the last time that we did this, that the weight of the breast forms may have stretched the skin. That may have provided an easy place for your body to store fat as it fought the stretching. Of course, since I have no medical training, I can't say that with any certainty. I'll have to ask Dr. Danvers. I said, let's see if the other side is different. Come on, Barbara, do the other side, please. Hurry. Barbara used the solvent to remove the other breast form, and as soon as it was uncovered we saw that that side of my chest matched the first. While we were talking, Marge had been cleaning the forms in preparation for reattaching them. Barbara took the milky white solution that Mom had gotten from Dr. Danvers and swabbed my chest. The gray skin gave way to a pale pink color as the dead skin cells and old adhesive were removed. She dried me off once I was clean. I said, look how big they are. What do you think, Mom? I think that they are approaching an A-cup size, honey. That's not what I meant, but that might explain why my bras have seemed so tight lately. What should I do? Should I continue to wear the breast forms? I think that you have to, unless you want to stop being Crystal and return to being Carrie. I thought about it as everyone looked at me in silence. No. I can't do that. We still have a long way to go in building the college fund. If I stop now, then we're back to community college as the only alternative, and even at that we'll need the maximum loans available. I have to continue. Are you absolutely sure? I nodded solemnly and said, yes. Mom looked at Barbara. Okay, Barbara. Barbara proceeded to reapply the breast forms to my chest. After being firmly attached, Marge worked her magic with the permanent makeup, and once again they appeared to be part of me. When the makeup was dry, I put on my bra. Mom looked closely and said, I see what you mean. We'll have to get you a larger size. Or perhaps we should look into getting smaller breast forms so that you can remain a 36C. We can't do anything for over a month now. It will be that long before the glue starts to break down enough so that they can be removed. True. But it will take a week or more to get them after we order them, so perhaps we should start. Barbara, can you give me the phone number of the company? Of course, Susan. I'll get it for you. Barbara got the phone number of the company, and then we sat with Barbara and Marge for a while longer before it was time for us to leave. We walked to the car and headed for home. You're awfully quiet, dear. Just thinking, Mom. I was a bit surprised by my new developments. How do you feel about them? Confused. I know that I've been playing this role to the hilt, but I didn't expect this. Is it possible that feeling like a woman can cause your body to develop like one? I don't think so. When I was a young girl, I wanted my breasts to grow quickly, but I just had to be patient and let nature take its course. Willing them to grow didn't seem to make any difference. After a very brief pause, she added, Do you? Do I what? Feel like a woman? I looked at her for a few seconds. Yes. I've been immersed in this role for about 4 months now. I originally copied my movements and mannerisms from the women around me, mainly you, Carol, and Aunt Jessica, but now, they're a part of me. I feel more like a woman with each passing day. I don't think that I could help it, living the role as I do. To be believable in the role, I had to keep telling myself that I was a woman and had to act like one, so I've tried my best to behave like any other teenage girl. I've spent a lot more time kissing boys than I ever did kissing girls when I was Carrie. And now I'm starting to grow breasts. If I didn't feel like a woman before, I certainly would now. Carrie seems like just a distant memory. I'm going to have to learn how to be a boy again when the time comes to switch back. Well, first things first. We'll try to find out what's causing your new development as soon as possible. For right now, we should get you some new bras. We drove to the mall and managed to walk quietly to the lingerie department in Barrett's without my being recognized. As Mom and I looked at the bras, someone identified me and approached for an autograph. This had the effect of calling attention to my presence, and before I knew it, a small crowd started to develop. Store security showed up and tried to hold the crowd at bay as we took our selections to the dressing room so that I could try them. When we had made the selections, Mom spoke to one of the security men. They crowded around me and protected me as I signed autographs, while Mom took the bras and went to the checkout counter to pay for them. I signed autographs for everyone who wanted them, but the crowd didn't disperse, so I waved to them and the security people escorted me to the rear of the store. We lost the crowd as we entered the employee tunnel that led to the offices and the rear exit. Mom was waiting in the car as we emerged behind the store. I thanked the security people and hopped into the car. I breathed a sigh of relief as we approached our house. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment. Thanks.